what we're going to do is we're going to open it up right now to some of the candidates that's running for the different types of, whether it's, we have so many different things
council,
locally. City council, mainly city council members. We would like for those folks to call in. We've reached out to several campaigns. The number once again is 713-526-5738. And so we're going to definitely touch on a couple of the local races, and we definitely want to touch on that. And let's bring it in state now. We talked about it broadly. We talked about some of the. But before we do that, let's talk about fundraising a little bit.
Okay, let's do it.
Because money is always a big thing, and the two most progressive candidates just raised over $50 million without one fundraiser.
Yes.
Talk about the importance of that. Because a lot of people especially in our community, might not understand how they are tapping into what Barack Obama did when it comes to building, and how people can always come back because they're way under the threshold.
Right. Let me explain. First of all, the threshold is somewhere around 20-something.
It's just over $2,000.
$2,000.
Let's just say $2,000.
Yeah, $2,000. And what happened is Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, they love to collect donations $3 at a time, $3. Their average donation is 20. I think Bernie was 27, hers was 22 or something. Somewhere. It's a little bit. And what that means is that they can keep coming back to the same person several times because all they're asking for is nickels and dimes from these different people. Now, the thing about it is, it's interesting that you brought that up, Brother Evans, because I just had some women from my wife's book club over to the house, and one of the things that I gave like a cheat sheet. They wanted to get politically involved, and they said that they everybody now wants, and that's why I'm excited, because everybody wants to get politically involved. So they came over to the house, and I made a cheat sheet. And the cheat sheet was, what does it mean to be politically active? And a lot of people think that they have to be out there on the field, jumping around and screaming and all of that. That's political activism, right? And in fact, that scares a whole lot of people from getting in. And just what you said, one of the things I said is, just give a little bit of money to a candidate. Give a little. Of course, I also said give a little bit of money to independent media, KPFT.
Of course, 713-526-5738.
It's important, and do remember, folks, when you're calling this number, this money is going to keep this station on air. It's not going to any of our pockets here. It's going to keep this station on air so that you can hear what we're talking about. But anyhow, talking to these ladies, I said political activism is important for us to do, and it does not involve necessarily going out in the streets and protesting like many of us do several times a month. Political activism is you see a story in a newspaper and you write a letter to the editor. Political activism means you are on social media and you hear somebody say something that is anathema to everything you believe, something that is completely wrong to people that, maybe something wrong on healthcare or whatever, putting that message out. Because you putting that message out in social media, thousands, hundreds of thousands of people see it, even though nobody likes it or recommends it. Political activism means going ahead and not only giving $1 or $2 to your candidates or your independent media, it also means going out there and talking. So I gave these ladies, contacted these different newspapers. These are the different independent blog sites that you can go to and be a part of the conversation. It also means, going out there and joining organizations like the different political clubs that you have out there. It also means being a voter registrar. There are a whole lot of things that are small little pieces that you can do to become politically active. That isn't what most people think of activism. Yeah, there are some of us that are going to go out there in the streets. Yeah, there are some of us that are going to write letters, and you can do that too. Write letters to your congressperson and say, hey, in your handwriting with a piece of paper, I don't like what you're doing. Believe it or not, those are the things that these guys listen to. Somebody that spends the time to do that.
That's right. And that's so really important, because a lot of times people don't really understand that it's the boots on the ground. It's the people who knock on the doors that get the votes. A lot of people think that, that and they do waste. I think they waste a lot of money on stuff on the airwaves.
Right.
A lot of times when that stuff gets because it's so much coming at you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I saw some things where they were talking about this. I didn't even hear the ad, but I saw the ad. And it was an ad talking about the Democrats were going after the president.
Right.
You know,
that's a new ad that he's put out.
Yeah, and I'm sitting there, and it's like we've gotten to the point in politics where CNN doesn't even play the ad because they're so false.
Yes.
There's so many falsehoods in it. But that's where we are right now, and that's why activism, having people on the ground, because what those people do when they knock on that door, they don't just say, "Can will you give this person your vote?" They're explaining why you should give them your vote.
Exactly.
Here are the things that they stand for. Here are the things, and I wanted you to kind of talk about the importance of representation, because so many times, especially in the African American community, when we have these off-year elections, when it's not a presidential election, our numbers in the African American community go down tremendously. And it's just hundreds of votes, literally, that keep a mayor from being a mayor or a city councilwoman from being a city councilwoman, when it's just maybe even just her friends and family just came out in her district to support her. Just how important that this off election year is here in the Houston area.
Look, if you don't want your vote to be taken for granted, if you don't want your town to be taken for granted, if you don't want your street to be taken for granted, people have to know. And by the way, we know we have a thing called VAN. Okay, that's where we keep every single vote. A database of every single voter in Texas is inside of VAN, this big database. And we know who votes, what elections you voted in, who you voted for. Well, not who you voted for, but kind of an idea of who you voted for. We know all of that in that database. Here's why I'm saying that. If you're from a community that doesn't vote, then you're not going to get any services, because denying you service and giving others what would have been yours makes a lot more sense.
Now explain that, what you mean by services, because a lot of people...
Let me give a good example. Let's go ahead and let's say you have a ditch in front of your home, and that ditch in front of your home has a mattress and a cart and it's just clogged up. And every time it rains it floods, right? And you call somebody to, hey, you need to come and fix this or clean this out. But let's go a couple of streets down, and let's say on that particular street, everybody votes on that street. What do you think the politician who sees these numbers is going to do? He's going to say, let me make sure to take good care of those folks I know coming out there to vote.
So you mean to tell me that the politicians can literally go into a database and see who voted in those areas,
of course,
to see who to be able to service or not? A lot of people don't understand.
Let me tell you, when
detailed that can get.
When we are close to the election, our targets are usually those people who we are counting as reliable voters. So we can go into a database, look and pull up reliable voters, and inch them on to the polls, because we know it's a harder task to get those who don't vote to the polls, so we forget about them. We don't expend the time on them because they have already showed a proclivity not to vote. So if we teach our folk in all these different areas, don't put yourself in that space where you are discounted, because you go into certain parts of this town and you see it's a mess, and every year you see it's a mess. The only reason it's a mess is they have no power, and their power is the vote. Let me tell you something interesting. People always talk about corporations, and you hear me talk about corporations and the plutocracy and how they're taking over or whatever. Here's the funny thing. Every president in that particular company has one vote, just as much as that person who makes no money. One vote. But the thing with that plutocrat is he's going to invest his money in the people who are going to vote the way he wants them to vote. And he will try to put roadblocks on the people who will vote against what he wants them to vote. He has the money to do it. It's the vote, but we can get around that by simply getting our butts out there and actually voting. And I mean voting in quantities that can overcome all the different prejudices, the voter fraud, the equipment, machines, we can overcome all of that if we overwhelm them. Obama knew that. President Obama knew that. And President Obama, let me tell a bit here. America was not ready for a black president at all. It was not ready for a black president. Obama showed that if you can overwhelm a system with voters, okay, that you can actually win. And that is what he did. If you take a look at where his votes came from, he had to create a new voter base. Nobody has yet to match the amount of votes this man has gotten. And the way he got those votes, even though the other people got more votes as well, is that he tapped into what nobody else tapped into. And any politician who really wants to do that and learn that will win again.
That's why I think it's so vitally important that we understand the difference a lot of times between these different types of politicians.
Right.
Even though we have a lot of them with D here, that we support, that don't mean a thing.
Right.
Because could you just take a moment, and I really want our people to really have a better understanding of politics tonight. You know, we are still at the 20,000 foot level looking down. But could you talk a little bit about the difference between a progressive Democrat, especially here in Texas? Because right now Texas is on fire.
Right.
There's a lot of people. There's a lot of opportunities here in Texas. As far as next year, we're really excited about all the opportunities here. When it comes to being able to flip a lot of the House seats that people are retiring from. Can you talk about the difference between voting for a Democrat? Because you mentioned a lot of our neighborhoods still look exactly the same. We need some progressive thoughts, some progressive candidates. What's the difference between a progressive candidate in these neighborhoods and the current situation with the neighborhoods that people?
Okay, let's be clear. Democrat is just a party, just like Republican is a party. And I'm going to say something that is very controversial and sometimes get me in trouble, but I'm going to say it anyway. There's this stuff known as the Establishment Democratic Party, and those are sort of the rulers in the party. And there's also the Establishment Republican Party. Let me tell you something about both of those two. They're both friends. Okay? So there's not a hell of a lot of difference between these establishments themselves. In fact, today I actually wrote something on Biden, and I'm going to go into exactly what you want me to talk about. I just want to say this real quickly. Where I said Biden is just sort of like an antiseptic type of a Trump. In other words, he doesn't have the crudeness of Trump. He doesn't have a lot of the way. You know, people think, I think because Trump is so crude, I'm sorry, 45. I'm sorry, forgive me.
You're good.
Because
we just don't say.
Yeah, because 45 is so brash in the way he does things. We look at him a lot worse than, I don't want to say a lot worse than he is because he is terrible, but we look at him as if he's so much different than some others that are running, which it's not the case. If somebody is going to stab you with a frown or stab you with a smile, you're still going to be stabbed. Okay? And that is what I'm trying to get folks to understand. Now, your question was about between progressives and a progressive Democrat and another. I don't know the difference between just a rank and file non-progressive Democrat and a regular conservative. If you have a Democrat telling me that we cannot do Medicare for all, it means that what he wants is a private sector controlling something that they put no value in. In other words, if I told you, and I'm going to go a little bit deeper in a minute, but if I told you, hey, Brother Evans, you have bills to pay. You have $10 of bills to pay. And then I tell you, but to pay your $10 of bills, you got to give me $12. And you say, okay, how many checks are you going to write? And I say 5 checks. And you say, well, I have my checkbook with 5 checks, and I would have to write you a check. Why would I write you a check? Why would I just write the check myself and pay pay the bill and save myself 20%, $2.
Sure.
That is all private insurance, health insurance do today. They like to say things like we manage risk and all of that. Well, if there's one risk pool, there's no risk to manage.
That's right.
Okay? So therefore, they're lying to you. So when you have any Democrat that wants to say that they are progressive, and at the same time they come out and they say, but we cannot have Medicare for all, but we cannot have health care for our children, and we can't have all these different policies that make family life better, it means they're not progressive. Why aren't they progressive? Because they're not looking out for the interests of the masses. They're looking out for the interests of the people who would otherwise have to pay a bit more. I didn't even say pay everything, pay a bit more to support family values. So we have the people on the right that claim they're for family values, not supporting policies that support families. And then we have non-progressive Democrats that are doing absolutely no different from an effective standpoint. When I say an effective standpoint, I mean you can color it any way you want. You can say I'm being less rough than they are and have a smile on your face. But if the outcome is the same, if you're still living with trash in your streets, if you still can't go to the doctor, if you can't do any of those, why have you? So what we have to start doing is rank and file Democrats. I love my Democrats. I love my everybody. But what you've got to do is you have to start saying to yourself, what are you going to do for me? And if you cannot give me Medicare for all, if you cannot give me student loan forgiveness, if you cannot give me all these things, which by the way, we can afford. Anybody who tells you we can't afford does not understand the obscenity of wealth in this country. They don't understand what wealth looks like in this country. When you have 6 people control more wealth than half the country. I mean, folks, let me tell you, most of what you see on TV, when you heard Stephanopoulos ask Elizabeth Warren, how are you going to pay for it? He knew how it's going to be paid for. Mm-hmm. But that's the media they want you to believe. And what about us, Evans? We are telling you the way things really are.
That's right.
So progressives are the people who want to ensure your well-being, period, punto final. Progressives don't look for an excuse to tell you why they can't give you something. They look for the reasons that they must give it to you. Progressives understand that we do not create laws for business and then try to fit humanity into it. In other words, we don't create laws for business and say, okay, this is how business operate. Now let's see how we can best make people work out okay. We can only afford X amount for healthcare because we created these laws for business. You create a society first, and then business adapt to what you want out of society.
There you go.
Okay? We have it all wrong.
That's why so many bankers are actually so scared of Elizabeth Warren.
Yes.
That's so powerful. Who do we have?
Brother named Cochran.
Let's bring in Brother Cochran.
Hello?
Yes, sir. How you doing this evening?
Yeah.
Welcome to the Conscious Mindset.
Okay. God don't want us to stop doing what we doing. Because when we back on where we come from, like in the Bible saying, we're going to turn into a pillar of salt. Ain't nobody turning into no pillar of salt. That's those white people coming to make slaves out of us. Like a woman who gets her space to be a woman, choking me down with her woman ways so much, she ain't leaving me the space I need to be a man. With all due respect to each other. I ain't no slave to the preacher, but I is a slave to God. Why do a man go to jail for renting a woman when he married a single person? A woman love ain't free. Men gonna pay for it, her company or companionship any way it go. And they killed that sink fella, whatever, and man, I had to say something. It made me feel like they killed me, and I don't know what else to say. Thank you.
All right, my brother. I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to express yourself there. not quite understand exactly how did that deal with the conversation. But let's get back to the conversation.
Yes, sir.
We can go ahead and cancel that. I think we still got it on. Go ahead.
Let me jump in and say this real quick. I think again, as I was listening to Bob Law talk about the two most important vestiges for Black people previously, whether they were from the Caribbean or whether they were part of the diaspora or whether they were from the continent itself, was Black radio and the Black church. And you've seen those two vestiges become diluted and divest from the interests of the community in particular. And the reason why I say that in simple terms is that when we do have these conversations, we're still talking about white people. And not talking about, and I'm not saying that in terms of what we're talking about tonight, but I do want to make sure that, I just interject that, we have communities that are being taken over through regentrification, gentrification. You have a plethora of young people being beset with STDs and STIs. And also, the dropout rate is extremely too high. And then, one of the issues that I think is so important, and I know that many of them have, and specifically talking about those on the Democratic side, but student loans and student debt, and the fact that there are not jobs because of the deindustrialization of this society to even meet adequately the cost of living that's required. For example, for a family of 4 to survive in Houston, Texas, they need to make somewhere in the area of $2,800 and I think $26 or $96 a month. And one individual, a single person, needs to make somewhere in the area of $817, and that's outside of rent. And the average rent in the city is about $1,026, which would require you to make $20 an hour. And there's a large swath of folk not making that. Why do I bring all those things up? It's because, even at the debate at TSU, you mentioned how they weren't talking about Mickey Leland and how they kind of, mentioned Barbara Jordan quickly. They weren't even mentioning any issues that affected those people in that hall.
That's right.
And that's the problem that I see in terms of, we're in this celebrity whirlwind to where the latest concert we're going to be at, like most folk, listening where we are in Houston, there are 3 concerts going on simultaneously on a Sunday night. What the hell is going on with Black people? We got Frankie Beverly and Mays running around here charging all these expensive ass tickets for people that don't have the money. What the hell is going on?
Find the money. They find the money to go see.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Why? Because they've been educated to worship celebrity and to worship entertainment and to celebrate, we got a black person in office, rather than, no, we need to hold them accountable. Exactly. How do we hold them accountable? What are the tenements? What are the things that we go to? And I'll close with this. Killer Mike, and it's went over millions and millions of people have seen it. And that dude didn't say nothing. That hasn't already been said for the last 20 years. We need an agenda. We need.
I was kind of, I was kind of surprised. I'm like, did he listen to the show? It's like because we talk about it all the time, brother.
It's horrible, man. It's horrible.
They are so far behind where we have been talking about and moving forward for years.
And again, that goes into celebrity worship. And white people are the face of poverty. You don't know that. You don't see that because corporate media and the fact that, those in the celebrity positions that we call politicians aren't going to say that. They're not going to say the face of poverty is white people. They're not going to say that the average family doesn't have $400 for an emergency. They're not going to say that there are more predatory lending entities inside communities in McDonald's and Subways. So why am I saying all these? I'm saying these things because as we see the gross inequality in our society, we see people like Elizabeth Warren trying to attack that, even though she was a former Republican benefiting from it, and claiming to be an Indian. And then at the same time, good old Joe from Scranton. I mean, come on, man. He's in the pocket of every credit card company, every private prison. So when we're looking at these things, and I'll close with this, we're seeing the top 3 candidates that they are saying will give Trump a run for his money. An old white man that just had a heart attack a couple days ago, right? You got an old white woman who doesn't know whether she's a damn Indian or doesn't know if she's white, right? And then you have a gaff machine that doesn't even understand what's going on.
That's telling black folks in order to have get your children right, go play
a record.
Right.
Go play a record
LP.
player, an LP.
An LP.
Right.
A
Right.
record. A record.
He told black people how to live. If you saw him in one debate with Barack, he said, I got STD tested. Barack got STD tested. We need to get y'all STD tested. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like, are we serious? And that's the problem with the Trumpism, is he has created a normalcy that's so insane that now you have candidates that they're trying to position and model to beat him. But they are the same illness and same sickness that he has become susceptible to, that we need to fight. The corporatism, the corporatization of our democracy, and the fact that white privilege and white supremacy has put us in a position in which we can't even think outside of the box of anybody else. I'm not saying Buttigieg is better. I'm not saying Cory Booker is better. I'm not saying Kamala Harris is better. I'm just saying that it's really strange to me that in the era of trying to beat Trump, we're finding individuals who are endemic of what Trump is. And I think as this nation begins to change, and the statistics purport it, and you can look at the data, the fact that it'll be a minority majority, whatever they want to call it. I think that we no longer can allow our issues to be pushed to the side or to be almost as if submerged or euphemized with everyone else. No, we need to make sure that we put education at the forefront. We need at least another $300 million in each and every urban center specifically earmarked for education, and the kind of education that we can begin to control. We need to begin to look at the infrastructure in these communities. Why in the world do third world nations come here and they say, damn, Chicago look like this? New York looks like this? So those things can be done. If we have money to give a black budget to the military of over $1 trillion, not what's on the books, but $1 trillion in black budget, black money that's under the table, then we need to be able to find that same money for the infrastructure and for the renovation and the development of these communities that are so suffering and so deprived.
I agree 100%, my brother.
Man, how do you follow that? How do you follow that? Listen, that is so true about the what they're doing. You know what I've started saying, and that is, the 45 is just the manifestation of the problem, and you got that right. As said, he's just a manifestation of the problem. Now, you mentioned about celebrity, and you mentioned about how people, our friends that are out there spending money that they probably don't have to see 3 concerts in town right now, and all of that. There's a whole lot of indoctrination that's there. This is a learned behavior that has to be unlearned, right? We have a caller that called in, and can I go ahead with it? A caller that says, to say he wants to tell the speaker that America is a capitalistic nation, not a socialistic country. Which country is speaker talking about? This is no different. This statement, and by the way, whoever said this, I respect you, but I want to talk to you. Okay? I really want to talk to you. Because the same ills that we talk about, those folks who don't have the money but are going to see the concert, the same kids that are going out there and spending money on the Air Jordans that they could have spent on something more worthwhile, it's the same disease that I see, or the same pathology that I see when I hear somebody makes a statement similar to this. You have learned in school, you have been indoctrinated in school that tells you to tell me a capitalist, we are a capitalist nation, not a socialist nation. Okay, you are big and bold and you believe that. What has that done for you? An economy is supposed to serve. We are not supposed to serve an economy. So therefore, if the current economy, which is, you are 100 correct, my brother. You are correct. It is a capitalistic economy. How well has it served you? How well has it served most? If 80% of Americans can't come up, as Brother Sed says, with $400, how effective has this economy been for you? If you don't have any money in your bank account, just coming out and telling me how great capitalism is, don't tell me that. You may want to ask me, what do I find would be a better economic system that we have today? And then we could get into a conversation. But when you make an absolute statement that says this, you're saying you don't care, you just need to know the words. There are a lot of people who built downtown Houston. It's a beauty. When I drove into to the studio today, and I'm coming in on the freeway, I'm from Panama, Central America. By the way, we just started to get a beautiful skyline as well that most people can't use. I am driving into on 59, and I'm seeing this beautiful skyline, and I know all the contractors and the guys who laid the brick down there, and after they're done putting the expensive rugs, and after they're done putting all these things down, they're forbidden from being in there because those buildings, you built it for the elite. Most Americans are antiseptic slaves. And until we understand that, slaves used to be people who look like me. A black person, no matter what part of America, yo hablo español, I'm from the Panamanian parts, but don't let anybody fool you. Any black person that was originally here in America came over here in a damn slave ship, okay? So, Brother Evans, you're my brother, even though we speak differently. You're my brother,
And we just got off
different
spots.
But guess
might
what?
have been the same shit.
Right. But guess what, Brother Evans? Guess what's the reality now? In America, they gave the average white person a semblance of not being a slave as we took the burden of building the country with a whip. But as they learned a new lesson, and this is going to freak out a lot of people, okay? And this came from one of my callers. I have some of the smartest callers on the planet, man. I had to tell him, wow, I can't believe you said that, but it's so true. He said, you remember when there's slavery, there's capitalism, there's also socialism, and there are all these isms, right? When you have slavery, right, you are a property. You are a cost to the slave owner. They have to feed you, they have to clothe you, they have to, if you get sick, they have to give you Medicare for all if you are a slave. Guess what the capitalist owners of the corporations have realized? If we are now capitalists, all the people in there are simply a labor force and they are commodities. So therefore, if I need you to work for me, you get sick, to hell with you, bring the next person in. I don't even have that. You're no longer property. So you think the slavery has evolved. It has evolved. And until we understand, until we take control of our economy the way we should, we are nothing but slaves to a corporation. Some of us are very high paid slaves, that is. But the vast majority, 80% of you, 80% of the people listening to my voice right now cannot come up with $400 if something happens. And you don't think you're a slave? After you work so hard, every morning I get up and I watch people. I see people in their cars early in the morning. The freeways are packed. People are going to work. They are making this economy. Brothers and sisters, I love you guys, man. We work hard. The problem is the spoils go to just a few. But we are indoctrinated into believing this is the way it has to be.
Once again, you're tuned into the Conscious Mindset. I'm one of your humble hosts, Brother Evans. It's the top of the hour, top of the 10 o'clock hour. And of course, we're doing, a very important show. Those who are tuned in here at 90.1 FM here in Houston, Texas. Those who are tuned in Galveston 89.5, those who are tuned in anywhere in the World Wide Web, it's www.kpft.org. If you tuned in Huntsville, we definitely appreciate you. Keep tuning in, keep your heads up, and keep sending those letters in. We definitely love you. I'm one of your humble hosts, Brother Evans. On the other side of the glass is my younger brother from another mother. What's going on, Brother Sed?
That's a great show, and brother elucidated and definitely broke down some much needed information that we need to begin to realize and understand, because one of the things that's so interesting to me is that Bill Clinton is lauded and applauded by neoliberals, and when we look at the travesties that he helped usher in and how he was able to manufacture so much madness. And you look at Dick Parsons, who was essential, who's never talked about. He was essential in getting Bill Clinton to create this kind of imagery and this kind of rhetoric that would galvanize the South into this old regality of the old South, the Confederate South, with a new spin of this intelligent. So it made people feel comfortable to gravitate to neo-capitalism. What do I mean? NAFTA and the destruction of NAFTA. We're still feeling the effects of that. And then even with Barack saying that many of those jobs would not come back and they would not be seen again. So what am I saying in simple terms? Because just keep calling at 713-526-5738, because I really want to explicate this real quick, because I think it's so essential, is that on some levels you have to have a Trump, because those jobs aren't coming back. Because this economy will never be what the economy of the 50s was. And I was listening to a speech that Clinton had given some years back this past week. He talked about we can make America great again. And that's been something that Reagan said. That's been something that Trump has laid his hat upon, is let's make America great again. And that is a part of the pathos and the ethos of this country. Is making people feel that this country was once great, that this country was once profound, and just the heyday of this country. When in actuality, in factuality, it's never been great for the masses of people. It's always been exploitation. If you look at when the Irish first came, the Irish were exploited. That's why they call them paddy wagons, right? When you look at when the Italians came, they were exploited. It's not until you begin to assimilate. It's not until you begin to leave your culture and enculturate yourself with racism, capitalism, and all of the other schisms that work in this society. And that's why when the Trumpster sits up and says in the hallowed halls behind the phalluses, in front of the phalluses, I should say, of Congress, and say, we will always be capitalistic for now and evermore. And you look at what that means and what that entails, is that represents not only the fact that we will continue to live in this pathology sprouted out by Reagan, that this country is a shining light, a city on a hill. But at the same time, you have more homeless, you have more poverty-stricken, you have more uneducated, and then you have Joe Biden, who was fighting in the 70s and the 80s to stop busing and to stop the amalgamation of different races and the diversity. And he was using all of these different code words to simply say he wanted to keep things in play and in place and keep the power structure the same. So I think that it's important, as we become more politically aware and politically astute, not to put our potency, not to put our promise and our potential in a personality, but in positions that represent our interests, so that we can make the kind of interesting moves that will move us forward. Because I'll say this, as we've seen with Forever 21 filing for bankruptcy, you're going to see more and more stores, more and more box stores, more and more physical locations closed because many things are being sold online. And then the power structure that doesn't want to pay those wages. So it's much easier to take advantage of the internet and all of those things. And I'll close with this, because I think it's important. One of the things that Clinton put in place that no one ever talks about, I know I'm one of the only persons that even brings it up, is in 1996 what he did with the Telecommunication Act.
Oh, yes.
And how they have gobbled up all of these different stations and how they have controlled all of the media. So to where it's possible for an individual to look up, and this is a fact because I looked up a Movado watch, and I've been getting ads consistently and constantly in every form and formation for watches. When I leave here, I might go buy a watch from the gas station. That's the only thing that's open. And I'm saying, we have to understand is that they have used these tools from Cambridge Analytics to all of these other entities that have studied us. And we need to be very careful and conscientious and cautious of how we get on social media and what we put on social media. Because I see it. There is nowhere in the world these algorithms, which are worth millions and billions because our data is priceless and invaluable, are not being used against us. So we need to make sure that we understand that entities like this that exist and are becoming dinosaurs and are becoming things of extinction still exist and still survive. Because without this lifeblood, you think Trump is bad. But what is Trump inculcating in the next generation? Because when he said capitalism forever, I saw, because I've watched the State of the Union, it was 30-somethings and millennial white men primarily who stood up and yelled and screamed. Yes, they believe that. And they are going to one day be in position and power. And I think they are going to be even worse than him because he's progenerating himself into the future. And we have less and less of what Ms. Williamson talked about, the morality and the goodness that you mentioned, Brother Evans, that we need to be using to defeat this negativity and this capitalism.
Man, it's so much to unpack there. But, it's top of the hour, and I didn't even reintroduce everybody to our other brother, because Brother Sed, had to drop that on us. Who else? But politics done right, but our other brother from another mother, Brother Egberto, man. What do you have to say?
First of all, I want to mention something about Biden real quickly, and he kind of brought it up, and I want to tell folks. A lot of people think that, and I just want to kind of some context for our audience here, and that is, a lot of people have been given Biden a pass because Obama picked Biden, not understanding the reason Obama picked Biden. Obama, and then I'll go on to the other subject, but Obama, folks, listen to me, and especially folks, all these folks that think that, they're supporting this guy because of Obama. And it goes as follows. Obama picked Biden for the exact reason he needed to pick Biden, for exactly the Biden that Kamala Harris called out. Okay? In other words, Obama knew that Biden was there to get a particular sect of vote. And it wasn't the vote that looked like him, it was the vote that abhorred him. So folks, remember that. Remember very well the reason why he was picked. He wasn't picked because he was a progressive man who believed in racial equality. He picked because he was a man. Those who didn't believe that would give Obama a pass because Biden was on the ticket. Don't ever forget that.
Yeah, that's very important. Very important. Very important.
Now, he brought up capitalism again when we started talking. And the thing about it is, I want to, everybody, whenever you hit the capitalism that we talk about here that these politicians like Trump, like 45 are pushing, people have a tendency to, like this caller, what you want to do, turn us into Cuba or turn us into Venezuela? Or, my friends, let me tell you something. There's something called free enterprise. Okay? Mm-hmm. Brother Evans, you're a free enterprise guy.
Yes, I am.
You believe in owning your own business.
That's
you
correct.
love to own your own business. You want to be your own man. You are your own man. We all here are our own people. We believe in free enterprise. There's a hell of a lot of difference than you being a master of some economic system where you do nothing, everybody works for you. That's what the kind of system that we have today. The folks who make the most today could not survive on their own. Remember that. Whenever you start giving kudos, whenever you start thinking that these people that we revere, the Bezos of the world, worth $160 billion, whenever you think that is capitalism, you're right. That is capitalism. How can you best make money using other people? That is what capitalism as practiced by Bezos is, and that's why he has $160 billion. I know where that money came from. That is the money that weren't paid to his employees. That is money using the intellect of others to develop the product that he has to make to streamline the data. Remember that. Before you start revering anybody calling themselves a billionaire, remember you are revering somebody that took your money. Remember that. Because the money that they are splurging on, the money that they have in excess, is money that was not paid to you. It's money that was not given to you in healthcare. It's money that wasn't given to you at all, but that you worked for. When you see these guys on the golf course when you're working, they're still making your money. So please, folks, stop trying to defend something that just considers you nothing more than a commodity at best and a slave at worst.
And not only that, but one of the key things that you also have to look at is you have a situation where you're celebrating people who are paying no taxes.
Exactly.
Who are worth $100-something billion and
Yes.
pays no taxes.
Yes.
So, you know, as a company, you know, I have no problem every year us writing that Uncle Sam check.
Right.
Because, you know, that's the cost of doing business.
Yes.
And as a business owner, I understand that. But for but to work the system and pay these politicians a couple of million in order to save you billion in taxes, once again, it goes back against that's not.
It's evil.
That's evil.
Look,
that's not a capitalistic system that works for everybody.
Right.
That's an evil system.
No,
but yet the average person has a 23% of their salaries going out of there to pay, and then people like him have. It just blows my mind.
Listen, when you watch Wall Street, the movie, they say greed is good and greed is what makes a capitalist country, and they're right. Greed is what makes the capitalist a capitalist. But here's the funny thing about it, right? Most Americans, all Americans, are wonderful people. If they weren't wonderful people, you wouldn't have capitalists.
That's right.
If Americans weren't good people, if Americans were not great people, if Americans weren't the people that were not greedy, you would not have capitalists, because they would not have allowed those people to rip them off the way they do or to have all their money. So they lie to you. I mean, when you think about the lies that are told to Americans that we believe, oh, greed is good and most people are greedy. No, most people are not greedy. Otherwise, Bezos would never have accumulated $160 billion. We would have taken it from him. We're greedy, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So the way that we fool each other into believing crap is what we have to work against, folks. We have to stop allowing other people to tell us how to think, what to think, and start using our thing called common sense. The truth of the matter is the good people are the 300 and something million Americans that live in this country. The bad people are the few capitalist billionaires that took everything away from you and then tell you somehow they are great because they did it when they were doing it with your intellect. When you went to these different universities, you are the one who got smart. When you're sweet, you know what I used to tell folks? A garbage man is worth more than a damn broker. Because you can live without the broker, you can't live without the garbage man.
That's a great point. You can't live without the garbage man.
Okay? And the thing about it, and that's why I make sure to respect everybody. Because I tell you what, there are people doing things that I can't do. There are people doing things I don't want to do. There are people, I just revere, you have to teach yourself this stuff. You teach yourself how to revere everything that everybody does, because if it's what makes the system work.
And what makes the system work? That's a great point. And I just wanted to also give, extend an invitation to those who want to call in. We talked about, we wanted some people who are running for office to call in. And, our friend of the show, Brother Chris, reached out to me. And, he's a huge fan of this young lady, and I want to bring her in. She's actually running she's a candidate for City Council District H.
Yay!
And we're really excited to have her on the show because, Brother Chris, one of the things that he said is that when it comes to representation, a lot of times, especially when you look at the city council, a lot of our people don't show up until it's time to vote.
Right.
And so this young lady has been an advocate in the community for some time, and he really wanted her to get a chance to get some exposure. So we want to welcome to the conscious mindset. I'm prayerful that I get your name right, man. It's Miss Cynthia Reyes Revilla. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's Cynthia Reyes Revilla.
Revilla, yes, ma'am. Loud and clear. Welcome to the conscious mindset.
Great.
Welcome to the conscious mindset, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Now, you're running for District H.
I am. I'm running for City Council District H.
Okay, so what made you want to run for District H? You know, they already have a city council. So why did you decide that you wanted to run for city council?
You know, I've been listening to your show for some time now, and you guys are hitting it right on point. You know, I'm not a politician. I'm a mom. I've lived in this district for 45 years, and all I want is just a better life for not only my family, but for everyone else who lives here. I don't think that because you live in a zip code that has more money or it should be any different than a zip code that has people who live in poverty. I think everyone is entitled to have equity and proper representation, and that's exactly what I'm fighting for. That's exactly why I'm running. It's because I believe in fairness, I believe in equity, I believe in transparency and inclusion, and I just feel in our lower income districts, which is pretty much 75% of District H, we don't have that right now. And you know, like I mentioned a while ago, I'm not a politician. I'm just someone who's really fed up with the system and just wants what's fair for everyone.
Now, a lot of people would probably just say, well, let me go to a city council meeting and let me write a letter and let me do all those things. But you decided to, no, that's not enough. So what is it that pushed you over the edge to say, hey, I not only can be an activist, but I need to go ahead and make this happen for this area in which I live. Yeah.
So our current leadership has been in office for just one term, which is 4 years. And over the last 8 years, I've been heavily involved in community work, ranging around issues or addressing issues around safety, education, workforce, health awareness, housing, parks, food distribution, identifying new leaders, you name it, I've been involved in it. And I have worked with the leadership hand in hand. And it just seems like time after time, I have been not only me, but the people that I've worked with and want to represent have been let down. There's been many projects where tens of thousands of dollars have been allocated into areas that we feel the community wasn't even asked if this is what we want or where else could this money be. And so I have worked hand in hand with the community, with the community and with the leadership that we have. And it hasn't been fair. And this is how my frustration has built up, and this is what has led me here to running for city council. So, I may not be a politician, but I am heavily connected in the community, and I know and I hear the needs of the people, and people in the community are not being given a seat at the table. They're not being heard. They're not being listened to, or being disregarded. And this is why we have so many people that are registered to vote, but they just don't come out to vote because they just feel like, why? Why should I? My voice isn't being heard, and I want to change that. I want people to know that they have the power to change whatever it is that they're unhappy with. They're unhappy with the current leadership, that they have the power to change it. And that's the message that I want to send to everyone now. You have the power to change it. You have the power to put someone new in office, and you have the power to change whatever it is that you do not like.
Well, Ms. Riveria, this is Egberto speaking, and look, thank you for being on the show. The great thing about it is what you just said is so important. People need to realize that their vote matters, and you've taken that first step. You've come on independent media to come out and tell folks, hey, your voice do matter, so you're hitting all the different avenues that need to be hit. Now, when it comes to financing your campaign, how are you making out with that?
Yeah, I've done really well. I'm obviously representing a district that is very low in income, and it's very hard to fundraise when you have, basically I'm fundraising dollar by dollar. That's exactly how I'm doing it, and I've fared pretty well so far. So it's going well, and I'll continue to fundraise until the last day.
Now, how many candidates are in your race?
There's a total of 4, including the incumbent.
Okay, and I imagine at this level you don't do any polling, right?
No, we don't. I wish we did, because I would love to find out exactly where I am right now. But no polling.
Well, I mean, as long as you're working, as long as you're working hard, that's what it really takes. And I tell you what, you are on a show at 10:20 in the afternoon or in the evening. I think that speaks well, and the people of your district should feel well that you are working for them at this time of the night.
Trust me, hard work is nothing new to me, and so this is great. I'm grateful for the opportunity, but yeah, I am working the streets, pounding the streets with all my volunteers, and taking advantage of every opportunity that I'm given to get the message out about my candidacy.
One of the things I just wanted to give you an opportunity to say is if you can take two specific items, two specific issues that you feel the people in District H that would like to hear you make a pledge or make some type of I guess what's the best word for it? I guess just for your agenda. What are two things on your agenda for District H that you would like for the people to know that you're going to be working on their behalf to do? Two specific things.
Yeah. So there's a whole lot of things, but if I'm asking you two specific, the first one's going to be safety for sure. And safety not only includes, addressing crime and but also the environmental health of the safety part of environmental health. And the reason I say that is because in District H, this district is pretty much surrounded by, well, not surrounded, but it has a lot of industrial environmental concerns, such as we have metal recycling plants, we have cement batch plants, we have the I-45 construction project that's coming through that every phase of the construction project, which is 1 through 3, is included in District H. And then we also have the discussions about the Hardy Trail Road being expanded. And when you think about, the environmental impact, air quality that our community is going to have, it's detrimental. Air pollution, Houston ranks 9th in the nation as far as having the worst air concerns, air quality. And these projects are not gonna make it any better. And I've worked with many partners in the past, and when you know of specific zones that are specifically high areas they have high areas of cancer rates, asthma rates, and they fall in District H, it is a huge concern. And when you talk about having I-45 expand from downtown all the way to the Beltway, and we're already faced with concerns of flooding and, elimination of affordable housing, just all kinds of different impacts. Air quality to me is the most important. So I want residents to know that I'm going to fight to push back on the I-45 project, and I'm going to also fight to really bridge that gap of communication when it comes to residents and those agencies that patrol our area. I have been working towards that for many years, and we've had made some great strides and changes, but there's more that still needs to be done.
Could you explain to people who may not have an understanding of what exactly that I-45 project? Because some people might not have a quite understanding exactly the environmental impacts as well as the impacts on the local community when it comes to it. Because we mentioned it on the show. Brother Sed has done a fantastic job of keeping everybody up to date on that project. But can you explain from your perspective exactly how it affects the people that you are looking to serve?
Yeah, so if people are not aware of what the I-45 expansion project is, it's basically the highway is going to be doubled, basically. And they're going to be taking it from where it currently sits now between downtown and the Beltway 8. They're going to be taking the downtown portion up to the 610 portion and flipping it so it runs alongside Highway 59. The impact that this project is going to have on communities is basically it's going to eliminate affordable housing. I'm a real estate broker by trade. I've been practicing real estate for 15 years, and we already know that Houston itself is already having a housing crisis. So it's a seller's market. So there's not enough housing for buyers. So when we have housing that's already being eliminated, that's going to put people in a really bad situation, and it may even increase homelessness in our area. Other areas of the other impacts this project is going to have on the community is displacement of I just mentioned displacement of families, elimination of affordable housing, potential increased flooding, accessibility onto freeways. So there's going to be entrances and exits removed from 45. loss of economic development. So basically, there's businesses that are going to be wiped out, churches, daycare, schools, and again, the environmental impact. You know, areas that have not flooded before, of course, we're going to be told, you know, there's going to be measures implemented in to prevent flooding, but we know that, you know, once it's in, and once flooding happens, it's happening, and it'll be too late at that time. So it's you know, Houston has seen so much flooding in the last 5 years that we've never seen before, and it's due to all this expansion of these construction projects where the ground, you know, there's too much cement. There's not enough natural, exactly, in the ground. So
now,
did you guys flood in any part of your district?
yes, so in the near north side area, there wasn't that much flooding, but as you went out to the north line, into the northern part of the district, yes, there was flooding in the Woodland Heights, there was flooding in Denver Harbor, so yes, there's flooding in District H.
now, if people wanted to find out more about your, and maybe even contribute, and more about your candidacy, where can they find out more information?
Yeah, so I do have a website, and the website is www.cynthia4districth.com. And on there, there's a history of my involvement in the community, some of the leadership roles that have led over the years. There's also a section where they can also sign up to volunteer and also donate to my campaign. I also have different social media platforms. I have Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and it's Cynthia4districth.com, or Cynthia4districth.
All right. You know, once again, we really applaud anyone that sees something that needs to be changed, and instead of just talking about it, jumping in and actually making it happen. So we applaud you for that. We applaud you for all the work you've done, and we wish you the best of luck. We definitely do.
Thank you.
And
Thank you so much. And thank you for the opportunity.
And just one of the things that we do say that every candidate that we do ask that you do is that if you are blessed to be selected by the people of District H to represent them, we ask that you do keep a constant communication with your constituents, that you have either monthly or bi-monthly town hall meetings, meetups. Keep them appraised, keep them informed of what's going on, and that'll keep you connected to the community, because communication is something that's vitally important. They need to see you. And so if there's any advice we want to give you, it's just that. Just make sure that you do stay in the forefront of people. So we ask you to continue to do that. We got Tony on the line. Let's go ahead and bring in Tony. You want to join in on the conversation?
Yeah, how you doing? I like to bless the listeners in Jesus Christ's name. Let them know that forgiveness is the key to life. But I want to address your little African friend that was on earlier.
African friend?
Yeah, the little dude with the accent or whatever he had. But he was talking about he want Medicare for all.
You mean my Panamanian brother?
Yeah, he want Medicare for all. Why don't he check out Venezuela or Cuba? Why don't you go look at the examples of how they living and look how we live?
Can I ask you a question, sir?
Yeah.
I'm from Panama. I'm from that part of the world.
Yeah.
Okay. Where are you getting your information for as far as how they live and how things are down there as far as their healthcare system?
You were dogging out the capitalist society, and look at Venezuela. Look at them. Look how they live.
No, he asked you a question.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just curious to where you're getting your information, because the person who spoke to me, I said I want to have a conversation with them, because we can go ahead and have a solid conversation as far as what is working and what isn't. You know, when I hear somebody tells me about capitalism, look at Venezuela or look at Cuba or look at the others, I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't know who's talking about that. The thing about it is this: the people that have our minds in control here in the United States, they like to use those two countries as examples. Now, let me tell you something about Venezuela. Ask yourself the question: why would a country sitting on the largest pool of oil have all the people poor, as our American and European and Chinese companies extract all of that oil to no benefit to the people on the ground? What I try to tell folks like you and others, my friend, I don't get into arguments or discussions. I just get into speaking the way things are. I'm from that part of the world. Africa, I think, I don't mind you calling me an African or anything like that, because that is probably my ancestry. But let me tell you something. There is absolutely no doubt, zero doubt, that what is occurring in this country today against every 80% of Americans today is wrong. 80% of Americans do not have $400, while Bezos, using the capitalist system that you are revering, to accumulate $160 billion of doing no work. Let's continue. Bill Gates has over $100 billion for creating Microsoft Windows. Guess what? I made quite a bit of money. I'm not some floozy socialist walking out there. I made quite a bit of money in this capitalist system and gave up quite a hell of a lot to say, you know what? Given that I had pricing power, I realized that only the people with pricing power are the ones who have the power in this country. And if you don't have pricing power, everybody else are slaves. So I became. Wait, hold on, sir.
Money is power to you. So you want us to chase the money?
No, that's not what I said at all. No, sir.
That's
No,
not
sir.
what he said.
You need to listen to what I'm saying and not be pre-programmed by what these people tell you here. We are on the same team. Remember that. We are on the same team.
I don't pay behind money.
Say that again.
I don't love money like you do.
I do. Why would you say? Why would you say I love money?
He didn't even say that. What are you talking about?
Why would you say I love money?
You just talked about money.
No. What I said is I gave that up because I realized what it was all about. No, sir, absolutely not. What I would like you to do, or however, my friend, is to forget everything you thought you heard about Venezuela because it's wrong. I want you to forget everything you think you heard about Cuba because it is wrong.
North Korea.
I want North Korea. That's a different story altogether, and that is where we cannot. We have allowed people like 45 and others to conflate these different countries that have completely different histories from ours, and completely different histories from each other. Anybody tries to conflate what occurred in North Korea to what occurred in Iran to what occurred in Venezuela are wrong. Say that again?
Iran too. I forgot about that.
Yeah, but what was important, my friend, is the following. What is important? Each of these have different histories. So let me give a quick thing about, let's say North Korea. North Korea is in the situation that it is in from the Korean War and the separation between the not wanting a capitalist state, and the reason why you notice they decided to have a bomb and nobody messes with them in having the bomb. But anyhow, so.
But what about Donald Trump lowering the unemployment rate at the lowest for blacks?
It's false.
It's
in
false.
the last 50
It's
years.
false.
It's false.
About that.
Well, there's a couple things with that, my brother. First of all, he didn't lower anything. That's it. See, he can't take credit for numbers that he thought were false when he wasn't president. Now he becomes president, he thinks they're real. First of all, the largest gain as far as for the president under any presidency was under President Obama. As far as blacks and as far as Latinos.
For so-called black people.
No. But let me finish, brother. I'm just answering your question. You asked a question about Trump, and we're just explaining that. First of all, that's the second. The second thing is what my man just said, and that is that there are so many people underemployed right now that are not making enough money. Yes, the number is low, but the number of people who are not making enough to make ends meet is higher. And I apologize, we couldn't get into it a little bit deeper. We do have other callers.
Can I ask you to give me permission to do one thing?
Sure,
This is no. Hold on, sir. Sorry, I want to say, brother. Let me just say something real quick.
Medicare for all. It's crazy.
Medicare for all, my brother. So let me explain something to you when he says Medicare for all. When it comes down to it is this. We are the only industrialized country in the world that do not take care of its people when it comes to health care. And you don't have to go to Venezuela or Cuba.
To the gym and working out. What's wrong with that?
No, it's nothing wrong with it. It's just that in this country, let me explain, brother.
With your own money, like I do, I go to the gym, work out, I try to eat right. Why do I got to depend on the system?
Break a leg and see how much of it you can pay for.
I was going to say, just drive home and get into a car wreck. Just anything can happen.
Why should I depend on the system to take care of my body?
Because
does that make any sense?
Nobody's asking you to do that. What I'm saying is, if you were to get into an accident tomorrow, which you could, and you had to go to a doctor, you couldn't afford to take care of yourself. I mean, we are a society for a reason. You could not break a leg and take care of yourself. So this thing that people believe they can be independent of government is ridiculous.
So you think Cuba's a good example of a government?
No, sir. We're not talking about Cuba. We don't mention Cuba whenever we mention anything to deal with a civilized country. We talk about places like France, places like Canada,
Yes.
places like that when people get sick,
They don't go bankrupt.
They don't go bankrupt. They go and the government takes care of them the same way that the government takes care of your roads,
And your corporations.
your all the things that you don't have the money to do for yourself, sir. We do not live in a society that we can. I wish we could, but I don't think that brother's. Last time I checked, not picking up his own trash, not doing his own car. He's not riding around his neighborhood being the police. He's not the fireman. He's not none of those socialist things.
No.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. That's just me. So, well, I thought we had somebody else who would come on, but.
Call back if we missed you. But let me tell you why I wanted to jump in there, right? Because the young man that we just spoke to, 45 is a very smart person, and he is using the numbers. He doesn't have to win a majority, and he doesn't have to win a large percentage of the black vote or the Latino vote. He just needs about 15-20% of the of the black vote and so forth. And what this young man who just called us pointed to me is that he had enough information that was wired to him through the Trump sequence of social media and other things. Because when he mentioned things about the black unemployment rate, shows that Trump or 45 is getting some penetration. When he says something like he can take care of himself by going to the gym, it says that some of that message from the conservatives who lie to the people why they shouldn't want Medicare for all is working. We, as independent media, my brother Evans, we have to counteract that, because to the young man who just called, that sounds good until he gets into an accident. It sounds good until he realizes that the black unemployment may be lower, but that you're making peanuts and you're still in debt. I mean, we have to clear that up.
Peanuts, but you actually do a comparison between white households and black households.
Right.
The numbers are absolutely ridiculous. You're talking about $7,000 for the black household and $127,000 for a white household.
It's important that, and what we see though, Brother Evans, is so many of that message, and that is why we have a lot of work to do, because some of that message is penetrating, because they've engineered the messages. They've gone to psychologists to see what buttons to push. Even Biden did it. Biden went and he paid an organization to do a test on what best to detract people from supporting Medicare for all.
Yeah, and absolutely. I forgot all about that story. You're absolutely right. I forgot about that. They actually did testing on that.
Yes.
And once again, you're talking about a situation where one of the most popular programs in any of the institutional programs is Medicaid.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? That's one of the most popular.
Yes.
So all we're talking about doing is extending that to.
And the thing about, and that's what I'm saying, the messaging, we have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
And instead of talking about how bad Trump is, we have to talk about how bad the plutocracy is in convincing Americans to continuously support policies against their own interests, policies that kill them. We need to remember to tell Americans, your Texas legislature is killing 2,273 Texans.
Talk about
every
that real quick.
Okay.
We talked about broad. Let's bring that here home state of Texas.
Right here in Texas. Texas is paying the taxes for the Medicaid expansion to the Affordable Care Act. Every state has to pay that tax. Mm-hmm. They don't have to accept the Medicaid expansion to the Affordable Care Act. By Texas decided to be big, bad, and bold. They decided not to take the Medicaid expansion to the Affordable Care Act, which meant it left an extra 1 million Texans without health insurance. By keeping 1 million Texans without health insurance, it means we have an extra 2,273 deaths per year. That's an intentional killing, which is also known as murder. If a legislature passes laws that inflicts intentional killings, your legislature is murdering your fellow citizens, and you mean you're going to still vote for them?
And here's a question. Here's a simple question.
Yes, sir.
Who are the people that would have been covered? Who are those million people that would have been covered? Because this is the key point. Because a lot of them people, if you were to listen, they're shiftless and lazy folks. What are you talking about? Who are these people
Sir,
that would have been covered?
Brother Evans, these are working American. These are working Texans. These are working Texans. And you know what? Of every spectrum. So many of the people voting, these same people in effect were voting for their own murder.
You know, it's amazing because, my mom actually works for this small company that is, owned by Caucasians. And about 50-50,
Right.
Conservative. And,
Right.
And so they have some activists in Austin that's pushing for their agenda.
Right.
That they're paying to push their agenda. And they were all against Obamacare. All against it. I mean, especially conservative ones, they was, not all of them. Half of them.
Right.
As soon as it got here to Texas,
They took it.
and Dad got sick,
Yeah.
guess who all those conservatives was sneaking into the office
Of course.
and closing the door
Right.
to find out how can they sign up their parents for Medicare,
For the Affordable Care Act.
For the Affordable Care Act.
Let me tell you,
Because they sat down and did the numbers.
exactly. Let me tell you,
They sat down and did the numbers.
a guy was in my house. I did the video just Friday. I played the video on Politics Run Right just Friday. He came in and he said, "If this is a Republican man, he's in my house and he's saying, I will kiss Obama's butt right now. I just had to put a new valve in my heart." Why does it take? Don't you have empathy? Let me tell
That's
you,
amazing,
Brother
man.
Evans.
You gotta almost see. It's got. See, that's the problem with that I have with a lot of Republicans because we talk about empathy.
Yeah, that's exactly.
We talk about empathy. They
Yes.
don't have it until it affects them. That politician in Ohio that passed that Republican that passed that gun bill.
Yes.
3 days after. You know
Because
why? You know why?
somebody is-
His daughter was around the corner and almost was shot.
Right.
That's why he did it because his daughter almost got shot.
The people that most speak about, morality and Jesus are the ones who least can see. I can't look at somebody. I am the type of person, I can't look at somebody in need. Brother, if I know you are in need, I've got to do something. And what I don't understand is how people do not see that their fellow Texans are in need and still vote against their fellow Texans' interest.
That's right. That's right. And trust me, you are not going to have people who are going to be, because people are living for the Joneses.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to tell you privately
Right.
that they're struggling,
Right.
that they're about to file bankruptcy because they're, my wife got cancer last year.
Right.
I mean, I always talk about the fact, I talk about the story, and we're going to talk, pull in a couple of folks that's waiting. I tell the story about my aunt who used to work at a hospital, got cancer, and could not afford to continue under her health care and had to sell her house.
Imagine that.
Had to sell her house 6 months after
Only in America.
finding out she worked at the hospital
Only
for
in
20-something
America.
years.
Only in America.
And they had to do a fundraiser, and the doctors who she supported had to literally put money in an account so she could pay for her, to cover the stuff that all her supposedly insurance didn't cover.
Brother, that is money going into the hands of the rich, the plutocracy, and that's what we talk about. So all those folks defending or going against what we say about, I can't believe you're speaking about our economic system like that. Remember,
That's the system we're in right
that's
now.
the system we're in, and that will affect you.
That's right. Let's go ahead and bring in caller number one who's been holding. Appreciate you holding. You're on the conscious mindset. Hello.
Hey, how's it going, man?
Doing well yourself, sir.
All right. Yeah, I just you can hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
No, I don't know much about politics. I'm not into that politics stuff. Get to work every day just like as any other man does. Any other hardworking family. Man, wife, put your pants on and go to work, provide. The only thing I had to say about it, is all the crying that people do that I hear. I just feel like it's like, everybody thinks and depends on, and they worry about what the other man's doing. And it's like, you can only make your own destiny by your own decisions. And I just don't feel that You can make $10 an hour, you can make $30 an hour, you can make $40 an hour. It doesn't matter what you're making. It's your decision on what you do and how much money you make and how you're going to live your life. And the government, yeah, they have input in it, but who's going to control who? You know, we put in a lot of work to make sure this world turns around as far as workers, as far as a working community, a family. And the people sit up in the high chairs and want to be like they're gods or something like that and can try to control us. That's not how it goes. And regards to Donald Trump, Barack Obama, or anybody like that, it doesn't matter what they say because they can put law and order, but we still run the community. We still put in work to provide and do the things we need to do.
Can I interject? I love what you just said, first of all, that we can have a lot of control. I want to say, first of all, that right now we don't, but with people like you who are saying things like that, if you really decide that you are going to join the crowd and say, we are going to take control, then we can. Right now, there are a lot of things I could tell you that prevent us from taking much of the controls that we need to, and once we mitigate those, everything that you said would be accurate.
Right. See, and you're right, because, see, I do storm jobs in Guatemala, Puerto Rico.
Right.
I work in a power company. I work in the electrical field. I do storm jobs, and I feel that people need to understand it's not the government. They do have a lot of say so on how to line things out, and you know that's because that's what they were trained to do, taught to do. They went to school for it. That's good. You know, great kudos for them. At the same time, any day and every day, they're not going to make a grown man or a grown woman or a child's mind up. You make your own decisions, and you're going to do what you need to do to provide for your family and be a family member or be a part of something. And
brother, man, you just keep your head on, man, and stay in the game and listen. I know you say don't go a lot into politics, but I'm going to ask you to do us one favor. Keep listening to Conscious Mindset. Keep listening to these shows because together we make a difference. So, you know, thank you for calling, brother.
Yeah, appreciate the call. Appreciate the call.
Yeah, I appreciate y'all, man.
Yeah,
Hey,
appreciate
thank you for making the donation, Brett.
Yeah.
And we really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
No, I appreciate y'all, man. Hey, just look like this. Put it out for the people out there putting the work, electrical fields, storm jobs. You know, we're out there putting power over there in Guatemala, Puerto Rico. We're out there working kind of Pike Electric, Encore. We're out there doing the work, putting in stuff to make sure families have power in their homes. But hey, don't ever let your head down. You know, nobody controls your destiny. Your destiny is only controlled by you.
Thank you, brother.
I appreciate you, man. Definitely appreciate you. Next caller. Yes, you're on the Conscious Mindset. Thank you for holding.
So thank you for taking my call. You know, I was listening to the show and it was topic tonight, and a lot of people got to understand. I'm listening to the gentleman we have, like his name, Egberto. I think he would really need our local politics to have an impact on our lives as our federal politics will. I mean, I'm talking about city government, county government, state government, and I heard one of the candidates called me tonight running for City Council District H. It's really accepted. And people, when you say people got to get involved, I agree 102%. Because a lot of these candidates and politicians, they won't respect us if we don't get involved. Now, I happen to reside in District H, and I personally called each one of the candidates myself. There are 4 candidates in District H, and she's the only one that returns my call.
Wow.
She's the only one who returned the call. Now, I'm African American. In District H, you know, you got the Heights in District H, and the other candidates in their race, they are only catering to the residents of so-called voters in District H. True enough, it is District H, but District H did not stand for the Heights. Okay? And when you look at it on purpose now, I told others before I got involved, I said, these candidates would disrespect you all this way, but not even return a phone call. You ever see any of their campaign literature, campaign signs, nowhere in the lower income areas of the district that they're representing. I said, so they're ignoring y'all now, you know, not even asking for your vote. They're going to damn sure know you want to get elected, they should get elected because they figuring, one, y'all not going to vote, they counting on voter apathy.
Right.
Football can make that change. And this particular candidate who called him tonight, Ms. Reyes Rivera, she's the only candidate running for District 8 to have approached the African American community in that district and asked their support. Listen what their concerns, their issues. She said, okay, I want to be your voice in the city government. Okay? She's about, from what I've seen, that I've met with myself, she's about diversity, equality, and inclusiveness.
My God, you know what is good? That was the best piece of advertising that any candidate could possibly get. And what was so interesting, Brother Evans, is you told her at the end of the call you hoped she would be talking and listening to the citizenry. And apparently she did that before you even mentioned it, brother.
Well, you know, that's one of the great things about, you know, being connected with folks, you know, who are connected with community on this show. That's one of the reasons why we do the show. It's for people like Brother Chris, who are activists in our community and who definitely want to make sure, because here's the key. One of the things that we understood last time, because me and Brother Sed talked about this last election. We had a couple people come on this show, and they ended up winning by like 300-400 votes.
Right.
And we know we have thousands of listeners.
Of course.
So we're gonna take a little bit of
the credit, man.
You know, take a little bit, take a little piece, because you know this was one of the few forums that people just like heard rather than doing a 30-second commercial.
Right.
She got a chance to talk for 5-10 minutes on exactly, and people got a chance to really get a chance to understand her.
Exactly.
And that's why we want to make sure we give people this option. But once again, it's about our connection to the community, and that says a lot. And what that means is you have a position like in the Heights, it's a situation where those 4 candidates can split that vote in that other community.
Right.
But in the community that's being neglected, the community that Brother Chris is talking about, if she galvanizes them,
that's hers.
That's all hers.
That's hers.
All her territory.
That is hers.
So Miss Cynthia, if you're tuning in, continue working with Brother Chris. Continue to connecting to those people who are not being catered to.
Right.
And you just might be that one. You just might be that one. Let's go ahead and take the last call of the evening. Been patiently holding. Thank you so much for calling. You're on the Conscious Mindset.
Yeah, great program as always.
Thank you.
Listen, I just wanted to give 2 ideas out to people who call into the station all the time with the same talking points against Medicare for all. A lot of times they will call in and make comments about Venezuela or Cuba, referring to socialism. The fact is, socialism is not being practiced in Venezuela right now because of the sanctions the U.S. government has put upon them. And the same thing against Cuba. Cuba has thrived in spite of our sanctions.
There you go. Mm-hmm.
And number 2, Bernie's socialism didn't poison drinking water for 99,000 Americans in Flint, Michigan, and 300 plus other American cities. That was GOP austerity made possible by Wild West, unfettered, unregulated capitalism, not socialism. You want Medicare for all, you can do it for less money than what we're spending now, and more people get
Brother Johnny.
actual health care, not worthless pieces of insurance paper printed up by banksters in Manhattan.
Johnny.
Man, that's one way, hell of a way to end the show, man. We definitely appreciate you bringing the pain and bringing the man, that was powerful. He's absolutely right. We coming up, man. 2 hours go by fast, doesn't it?
No kidding. When you're having fun, right?
Yeah, absolutely, man, absolutely. So let me get your thoughts on just start at the top again. Start at 60,000 square foot, then break it all the way down to the local. First, what are your thoughts on the national scene right now when it comes to what do you see coming in the future, nationally?
Okay, nationally, I think we're going to be in a lot of chaos for the next few months, actually. I think with all this impeachment talk, I think we're going to be hearing a whole lot of nothing. And I think what that means is that we are going to have to use alternate methods to get our messages out. I don't want us as a community, not only as a community but as a nation, to stay too fixated on what these powers or what's happening with impeachment and all of that in Washington D.C. because it's not going to put food on your table. It won't give you a better job. It won't do any of that. let's force the politicians that are listening to talk about something else. Let the legal system when I say the legal system, I mean the legal portion of our Congress or whatever, to take care of handling that. It doesn't require a whole lot from us.
Now, what about on the local level?
On the local level, we have become a progressive county finally. What I would suggest to the voters is do not be coerced into slipping back. Do not be coerced with false narratives. Do not be coerced. Vote what you know is right, and not what someone is convincing you of.
Now, if they wanted to find out more about you,
Oh my God!
and find out more about politics done right, my brother, how can they find out about you, my brother?
All right, on Tuesdays at 3 p.m., listen right here at KPFT 90.1 FM for Politics Done Right, and you can see all or go to our website at politicsdoneright.com. That is politicsdoneright.com, where we have all the videos of the shows as well. And in fact, since I've been honored to be here on the Conscious Mindset, and I really love to be here on this program with my two brothers, Sed and Brother Evans. We always get into some good conversations. There's a particular conversation we hadn't touched on today that I wish we had, the hug. But at some other time we...
Oh, man.
Oh,
man. Just quick 30 seconds. 30 seconds on that.
Yeah.
30 seconds on that, real quick.
Yeah. I respect the young man who hugged the killer of the murderer of his brother. I am a bit concerned that it sends the wrong message to police officers that they can continue to. I don't think she would have shot if that guy who got up. I think it was an accident, but I don't think she would have shot if that guy wasn't black. I think I had a discussion with a good friend of mine, a white woman that I love very much, and she was so taken aback by that hug. And I said I was not, and the reason I was not is because I think it's almost a pass for people to say, well, they're so forgiven, so we can let our prejudices reign. They're so forgiven.
Brother Sed?
Stay alive.
Yeah, we're gonna keep it real simple. I had so many different reactions to that, most of which I cannot say on the air.
Oh my God!
And I don't use that on social media, but I went off. And I'll just say this: I'll say what a friend of mine said in the caption. He said that if that is me that's been killed, and you did that to my killer, I'm coming back and haunting all y'all. I'm haunting all y'all, but I only want to leave you with positive words of the week, and this week is real simple. It's just real simple. This hit me like a sack of bread because it's such a simple statement. Stop expecting broken people to see through the lenses of your wholeness.
Wow. Wow.
As we always say, it could have been anywhere in the world, but we love that you spent your Sunday evenings here with us at the Conscious Mindset. Peace.